in school we've been taught that you have to read the entire book and write a report, but nobody's going to ask you about, what is exactly in page 249. Nobody cares. It's all about how you can apply this knowledge. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I get into reading? I'd really like to read, but I don't really have the time. Well, it's actually quite simple. You hear this all the time. It's even the quote of Nike, just do it. It's not that difficult. But most people, the problem they tend to have is that they get bored, which is understandable with all those TikToks coming out, Here is one crazy tip to get into the habit of reading and finish a book every week. Just pick out 3 books that you want to start with. Have one non-fiction book, have one philosophical book, and a novel. 1 chapter a day. One is non-fiction, the one that's going to help you with like practical problems, for example, Atomic Habits. It has really helped me to switch up my way of living and switch up my environment to create better habits for living and to get 1% better every day. So I highly recommend this book. Now, this is a non-fiction book, and you basically just sift through this and look at things that you find interesting. So you have your non-fiction book, and next to that, you have your philosophy book. This is Genealogy of Morals by Friedrich Nietzsche. And I read this when I'm in a mood for more cerebral work, when I'm thinking about morality and the big questions of life, God, and life after death, and whatever. So Nietzsche in this book talks about pretty heavy stuff about how Christianity, how their morals developed, and how the modern morals are actually stemming from the Christian morals, which used to be slave morals. And before that, you had conquerors who basically made their own morals. And he's talking about this sort of battle between these two schools of thought. Now, that's pretty cerebral work, and it's not gonna, increase my bottom line in any way, but it keeps my mind healthy and working. But sometimes it can get tiring, and you would like some relaxation, you wouldn't want any practical advice, you don't want any heavy philosophical stuff. So that's why as a third book, you have your novel. This here is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostojevsky, and this book has basically changed my life. I bought this book almost 4 years ago, and it took me maybe 3.5 years to really start digging into it. And the funny thing was, I started really reading it when I just told myself, okay, just, 1 chapter a day. And before you knew it, it was done in like a month. And this book it holds a special place in my heart. It talks about a student around my age who, was very resentful. He was smart. He had a very big brain. But at the same time, he was poor, was living in this shitty village, in this shitty apartment. And his mother and sister were basically sacrificing themselves for him, for his success. But he wasn't succeeding. So he gets deeper and deeper in this pit of resentment. And you just get transported into his head. And at the same time, you try to really understand him. Because, we've all been in this dark place where we look at other people and are like, oh, why do you deserve to have this thing or you don't, and I don't? So it's a book that's close to my heart in the sense that it explains the psychology of a youngster who thinks the world is yours. It's the same mentality of a young Alexander the Great that is like, okay, I'm going to conquer the world, but in a modern setting. And the book has a brutal killing somewhere in the first 1/3 of the book. And I highly recommend this. It's one of the best masterpieces ever written out there. So in short, if you want to start reading more, just pick out 3 books that you want to start with. Have one non-fiction book, have one philosophical book, and a novel. What I normally do is I take the philosophical book for the morning, so it's easier, I'm already clear in my mind, it's easier to understand all these concepts. In the middle of the day, I get my non-fiction book, so I get these practical things that I can apply for tomorrow or for my afternoon. And in the evening, to relax, I have my novel, which I read by candlelight, and it really brings me into that world, and it helps me sleep very well. So that's the tip of reading. There are some links in the description for these books. I'd highly recommend you picking up this one. I actually give this one a lot to my friends because I think that it's an experience they need to have, and because it touched me deeply, I would love to share it with other people as well. This one, if you're getting into Friedrich Nietzsche, I recommend this one to start with. It's an essay form, it's not too cluttered, it doesn't have all this prose that Nietzsche normally puts into his works, so it's a good starting point for his philosophy. And Atomic Habits, just go out and buy this. It's basically a mental model of how to think smarter about your habits. Well, that's it for this book video. Take good care of yourself, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.